Good evening. My name is Oliver, K6OLI, and I'm the District Emergency Coordinator for Aries LAX Northeast District. I'm, relatively speaking, a recent ham. I know quite a few of you probably have been hams longer than I've been alive. And I do say we a lot because please understand, this is never a one-man or one-woman show. Everything we do in amateur radio and especially in emergency communications is always a group effort. So tonight with us is also Jeff, W2JCL, and Tom, KN6BKT, and they're part of our team here at Aries LAX Northeast. And you know, if you have any questions, they'll be more than happy to answer those as well. First off, I would like to thank Dan Marler, K7REX, the Idaho section manager, for inviting us and giving this presentation. I would like to thank Diana Feinberg, AI6DF, who's the Los Angeles section manager, and it's a lot of fun. And she gives us all the support that we want and need to get everything that we're talking about tonight done. And of course, Joe Speroni, AH0A, the Pacific section manager, who's been an inspiration and a great person to work with, and he's been one of our staunchest supporters and greatest friends. So thank you so much for having us. One of the things that I told you just now is Aries LAX, like all emergency communications groups, are team-based groups. And so one of the things that we are doing is we go out a lot, we practice what we preach. So everything we're talking about tonight comes from hard-won experience. So please understand that this is not just theoretical for us. A little bit of background on Aries LAX, the section, and this won't be too long. Let's start with this.
Earthquake, strong shaking expected in 15 seconds. Earthquake, very strong shaking expected in 2 seconds.
All right, well, what this is essentially, this was an alert that we would expect during a 7.8 magnitude earthquake and along the San Andreas Fault. It would only give us a couple of minutes to actually, a couple of seconds, as you can see, to actually react. And the truth of the matter is, at that point, our world as we know it would come to an end. As we talked about a little bit beforehand, before the meeting, the pandemic going on right now, and our level in California is about a 3. Fires, I guess, would be a 5 to 7, depending on where you are. And of course, we do have another whole set of problems once an earthquake hits, because at that point we don't have electricity. We probably won't have any water. We will have a lot of fires. So everything we're going to talk about right now is with that in mind. So please keep that in mind as we go through the list and the presentation. Oops, let me just change this over here. All right. Aries LAX is a unique item, a unique beast in this ARRL setup. It's the only section that is a single county, and there are about 10 million people living in the greater LA area. 11 to 12 is the estimate, the realistic estimate of people, but 10 million according to the last census. And we are having we are straddling actually 2 continental plates, and that creates a very interesting topographic issue. On the one hand, we have oceans. On the other hand, we have very tall mountains. We have desert climate. We have kind of a Mediterranean climate. We have microclimates, everything from fog, rain. So we have a whole group of challenges right there. The Aries LAX section is divided into 4 districts. There is the South District, which covers the Long Beach, Torrance area all the way to downtown Los Angeles. Then there is the Northwest District, which covers mainly the San Fernando Valley, Santa Clarita, all the way to Malibu. Then we have the High Desert District, which has the fewest number of hospitals, but is a very large, physically large district located in the northern side and across the mountains, so that creates its own challenges. And then, of course, there is the Northeast District, which comprises around 22 cities, and we have a very diverse group, and also in terms of organizational challenges, we are facing quite a lot of interesting challenges that are fun to address. Overall, there are 70 911 receiving hospitals in LA County, 13 of which are disaster resource centers. And disaster resource centers, I'll explain in a moment why that is relevant. Please understand that the mission of ARES LAX is to support hospitals and the Medical Alert Center, which is the nerve center for patient transports and allocation, as well as during disasters, a hub where hospitals can request resources. So we provide the backup communications for this. Our goal is to connect the hospitals to the MAC and connect the hospitals with one another. And the simple fact of life there is that this is also part of the official Department of Health Services LA County reference or policy 1132. So you can look that up. In terms of our disaster timeline, again, earthquakes feature very prominently, so I use this one from OSHA. That's the United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. From the event, the first item is always self-rescue. We strongly support that everybody look after their family and their neighborhoods first before they activate with ARES LAX. From then on, we are expected, and that's in our discussions with the MAC and the EMS services, to provide up to 48 hours to 72 hours of communication support until the national level response has activated. So those are our goals, and we are quite aware that we are the pointed tip of the spear. Our goal is to set up a VHF, UHF station in under 15 minutes. Most of us can do this with digital in under 10. And then when there are lulls, we can add functionality like mesh, like HF, as the mission progresses. But this is what we're working towards. ARES LAX Northeast District. This is our little corner of the world. We support 20 hospitals in our district, plus the Medical Alert Center. I drew in the Medical Alert Center here at the bottom in red. And again, this is the nerve center, not just for the 20 hospitals in our district, but all the 70 hospitals in LA County. And again, these are just the 911 receiving hospitals. There are about 5,000 extended care facilities, clinics, and so on, in addition to that, dialysis centers that the MAC is supposed to support. Right now, there just aren't enough hands to do this. We're lucky that we can cover most of the hospitals that are working with us, but it is an ongoing, recruitment is an ongoing process, and we're, I think, doing a really good job with that. A couple of useful terms. You'll hear me refer to these as we go along. The MAC is a Medical Alert Center, and it coordinates patient transport on a day-to-day basis, and during disasters, it provides resources and coordination. Those are really, really important features, especially when you're trying to figure out, can we send patients to a hospital? Does a hospital need additional support? 13 of the 70 hospitals are designated as DRCs. That's a disaster resource center. And they have caches with additional supplies available for local surges. And I show you what part of one of these lists look like. But the idea there is, it's a large county. If you have a couple of these hospitals already with extra equipment, you can have a much faster response on a local level. And finally, WinLink. The simple thing about, I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with WinLink in this group, but essentially the way to think about it is email over radio. The nice thing about it is it works on HF, VHF, UHF, and SHF, so mesh, essentially, that's the way we use it, and the internet, which means it gives us a single platform to actually send digital traffic, both internally, ham to ham, as well as externally. The question, of course, all of you are asking, and we are asking ourselves, is how will we communicate mission-critical traffic for our served agencies? That's always at the foremost of our mind. And the answer might surprise you. We have found that the tactical communications are still best handled on voice, whereas all the logistical communications are ideally handled on digital. So our approach has been very successful, but it's also worked really well because we're combining voice and digital. In our mind and our experience, amateur radio already has a great number of excellent operating procedures. And if you can combine that using digital traffic, you can actually increase the speed dramatically. And why does that matter? Because the key challenges for all emergency communications, whether they're amateur or professional, today are accuracy, always number one, and circuit capacity. We live in a digital world. Our served agencies expect us to be able to send traffic digitally because there is a time limit and a lot of disasters are time sensitive. For those of you in Northern California, the Paradise fires actually overran a lot of the infrastructure early on. So there was not a whole lot you could do about this, but understand it was one of those mega fires that really picked up speed very quickly. So one of the things that we have to be mindful of is if part of our capacity gets limited, we need to do better with the frequencies we have left or the circuits that we have left. And again, accuracy, our goal is to have messages sent and received at 100%. And we'll get into that in a little bit about what our experience there was trying different approaches. What kind of traffic do we move at Aries LAX? And again, this is actual traffic, hospital status assessments. Hospital status assessments, and there are two ways of looking at this. There's the medical alert center view, what they need in order to dispatch patients and hand out resources or retrieve resources. And then there's a hospital view of the world. And they're not 100% overlapping. The MAC essentially wants a hospital status assessment. That's key. Before anything else can happen, it's a hospital service level, which in our case is a color code, which tells the MAC, are we having normal operations, limited operations, or is the hospital offline? Plus a bed availability report. What beds are available in which departments? Can we send certain patients to that hospital? Do we need to divert them to another hospital? Before anything else can happen, that HSA must be sent, and it must be received in a timely fashion. Nothing else will happen until that HSA has been sent and received. So please keep in mind, with 70+ hospitals, they all have to send this. And right now, we're going through a pandemic, as most of you are aware. This is something that the MAC sends on a day-to-day. Now they're getting hourly updates from all these hospitals because beds are filling up and being released on a constant basis. During a mass casualty event like earthquake, you would literally expect these surges of 5,000 to 6,000 people in 3-4 days per hospital. So knowing where you can send people, where you cannot send them is extremely critical. Next for the MAC are resource requests. Resource requests are exactly what they say. Hospitals reach out to the MAC and say, okay, we need these resources to keep the lights on. We need these resources to handle our patient load. We need these resources. And the MAC may then reach out to its suppliers or on a national level reach out to either state, national resources and make sure that those resources are available. They tend to be more involved. I'll show you examples of that. And finally, the Disaster Resource Center forms. So the way a Disaster Resource Center operates is a hospital says, okay, I need to reach out to our Disaster Resource Center, the local hospital that has those extra caches for, let's say, N95 masks. And then the Disaster Resource Center contacts the MAC and says, is it okay for us to release these resources? And if the answer is positive, then the DRC releases the resources to the local hospital. That cuts down on the delivery times and so on dramatically. And so they're very valuable for the Los Angeles County preparedness cycle. From the hospital point of view, of course, the HSA is the most important form that needs to go out before anything else can happen. Resource requests, that's how the hospital requests resources from the MAC, but it doesn't necessarily have to be from the MAC. It could also be from its own suppliers. It could request resources from local pharmacies, from its own chain of hospitals that it's part of, a group of hospitals, from at corporate headquarters. That's all possible. The other thing that hospitals send a lot of are hospital incident command system forms, which very often are used between the hospitals when they're making allocations on a local level, or between a hospital and its associated clinics. So being able to send those forms relatively quickly and easily has been a big boon for us. And finally, incident command system forms that you're all familiar with. Those always come into play depending on whether you now are communicating with your local law enforcement or your local city or other county resources that you may have a relationship with as a hospital. So keep that in mind. This is the typical traffic that we do send on a regular basis. Here's an example of what the hospital status assessment looks like. Essentially, it's a color code on the top here. And by the way, this isn't a real hospital. I just made this up for illustration purposes. We tend to not use actual hospital names for our amateur radio exercises. We use the actual hospital names for the statewide medical health exercise in November, or when it's a proper hospital exercise activation. So orange, modified service, that tells you already the hospital isn't in a green or yellow level. It's already dealing with some shortages. And here you can see on the left, you got medical, surgical, telemetry, adult ICU, pediatric ICU, all the way to how many operating rooms are available, how many ventilators are available. And for those of you following the news, ventilators are a big topic right now. And of course, is there a mass decontamination facility available? It has to be properly signed by a hospital or authorized by a hospital official. And the other thing is the MAC, even though there may not be phone communications, always wants a phone number attached to that person. And in this case, this form actually is coming out of WinLink. So this is the official form that, thanks to our friends in Sacramento Valley, Aries, Greg, and the WinLink development team, we were able to add to WinLink. So this is the official form, the way you can get it from the website. And this is something that is usually sent via ReadyNet. ReadyNet is a software package that the county uses to run the day-to-day operation for the hospitals and the medical alert center. Now, ReadyNet is a great software. However, when you have a surge and 70 hospitals are trying to use it at the same time, it has had a tendency to become overloaded. And I remember my first statewide medical health exercise, I thought, great, I'll be coffee and donuts all day. We'll see how the professionals do it. Within about an hour, we were furiously scribbling away because we didn't have the WinLink capabilities at the time, scribbling away and taking traffic. So that surprised me a great deal. And like many other people, I thought there has got to be a better way. This is what a resource request looks like. This is an official LA County form again. And one of the things that we did for quite a while is that we actually used spreadsheets, because one of the MAC officials suggested, he says, all our resource requests start as spreadsheets. If you can send the spreadsheets, we're golden. And for those of you who've ever sent a spreadsheet on the air, on HF, VHF, UHF, a 50 kilobyte file is a challenge all across the board. So we worked really hard to come up with solutions. One of them was using comma separated values. And that worked really well. And during the last statewide medical health exercise, they actually accepted our comma-separated value files that we sent and entered all that information. And a lot of the voice traffic, they actually didn't accept it because it was incomplete. So there's a big advantage to using forms. It helps you stay on track. And a big shout out and thanks to Greg, KG6SJT, and Mike, N6KZB, who have been absolutely phenomenal in helping us develop these forms for WinLink and making them available. Why are these forms, especially the resource requests, so important? Very simple. My day job's in finance. I don't deal with medical items at all on a day-to-day basis. If I have to say diphtheria, tetanus, toxoid, and I don't know, many of you will probably have a medical background, but I don't, or was it doxycycline capsules? I probably will butcher that on the radio, which means then I have to spell it out. Delta, Oscar, X-ray, Yankee, and I'm sparing you the rest. But that takes the entire system and grinds it to a halt on voice. I can take the same message now and send it, in fact, have the hospital fill it out for me, or give me a thumb drive with information I can just copy and paste it so they know they're getting exactly what they want. Now I can send this list in under a minute to whoever is receiving it. Well, since I'm usually at the Mac, I'd be the person receiving it. But the point here is whoever is sending the data can do that very quickly. If they have a much longer list, let's say they need crash cards refilled, and they're up between 200 and 300 items, they can just do that as an attachment. Makes it very, very easy to do that. But again, I wouldn't want to actually spell this out. And for those of you who are paying close attention, epinephrine injection there is 1/1,000 and in 1 milligram per milliliter ampules and 1/10,000, right? Does it make a difference to you as an amateur radio operator? Probably not. To you as a patient? Definitely. It does make a huge difference. And again, spelling things like syringes and whatnot, we can actually move that traffic a lot faster if we do this digitally. Here's an example of a DRC form. This is the medical and surgical cache inventory, and I actually showcased this during a recent presentation to a hospital DRC, to a DRC EOC meeting. And that was before we all went into safer at home status. And when I mentioned the words N95 masks, people started paying very close attention. And if you look at this, this is a DRC that has another 6 hospitals attached to it. The grand total, and I think I did the calculation, comes out to 3,780 N95 masks they had in addition to their regular items. And we're talking about millions of masks now on a daily basis. So keep that in mind, please, as we go through this. By the way, the DRC medical and surgical cache in its entirety is 6 pages. And for those of you who have WinLink, you can look this up for yourself and actually take a look at these very forms. They're under the California state forms, LA County forms, and they're all listed there. And we do encourage you to try them out, even in your own sections, and play with them and send them and just see how they work. And because we do that with other section documents as well, and this is how we learn what works for us. Are there any questions at this point? Okay, let's go on. So we tested quite a lot of things, and I do want to say we only use what works and what we can prove in the field. Personally, I'm not a fan of Would Do Dojo. There's this wonderful skit by Monty Python, a British comedy troupe, about what to do when somebody attacks you with a banana. And that may be valid. Maybe there is a 1 in a billion chance of that happening, but it's very, very unlikely. So what we need are robust solutions that work on a regular basis. And that also work on simplex. Keep in mind, before we proceed here, that I, as well as our group, firmly believe that the true power of amateur radio is simplex. We use repeaters, we like gateways, all of that great technology available, but when everything is down, we cannot have the repeater fallacy. That somehow we believe that our repeaters will stay alive when Verizon, AT&T, hardened sites from our served agencies have gone down. Our basic assumption must be that all infrastructure fails, and then we can build on top of that. Anything else is deluding ourselves into a false sense of safety. And just to give you an example, out of no reason whatsoever, recently we had a very key site in LA County where the HF antenna broke off and fell down on that repeater site and took out the VHF, UHF, mesh, and everything else that was on there. And it took about 3 months to get enough of a team together that all had the skills to actually put this back together the way it was supposed to be. So keep that in mind. In winter, there are a lot of our hills, they're really tall, that are snowed in. Very unlikely that we'll be able to go up there and fix anything. So everything we do needs to work on simplex. If we get to use repeaters, that's a bonus. If we get to use HF gateways that we can reach, that's a bonus. And our solution has been WinLink for digital. And yes, I know you're asking, have you tried N-beams? And the answer is yes. In fact, we're alternating between N-beams and WinLink, but for hospital traffic, we use WinLink because WinLink has a tendency to go 100% or not at all. It's at all or nothing traffic handling. During one of our FLDG nets, we did run into an issue where there were lines missing, and Net Control noticed that and had the originating station reread those lines that Net Control thought were missing. And as a result, there was almost a riot on the net because people realized different parts of that message were missing in spite of the fact that we all thought we had received it. The forward error correction was fine, the checksum was fine, but these were critical data. This was actually a medication list. So part of the reason why we believe WinLink is great is either it goes, and when it goes, it's 100%, or it doesn't go at all, and then you can find a different path. Maybe a relay, maybe another station can pass it on, forwarding without change. Those are all options. It also works with HF, VHF, UHF, and of course on mesh. So it gives us a single platform. It works with the internet, and if you're running a gateway and there's no internet, it works without the internet as well. You can have a gateway infrastructure, or you can use peer-to-peer. Every Thursday night at 2100 hours, we do have a peer-to-peer net on VHF, and we try everything that we think might work. And there are different philosophies about that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The other nice thing is we've got multiple robust modes available, just like N-beams. There's VARA for HF, there's VARA FM, there's Packet, which has been around since the 70s. There's WinMore and RDOP, which are great modes. And of course, there are Pactor hardware modems made by SCS. So quite a lot of options you have there. And this is a big plus with our served agencies, especially the hospitals, you can contact non-ham emails if you actually needed to. And sometimes that's a great feature to have. Gateway operation, essentially gateway is a post office. Again, I'm assuming most of you are familiar with WinLink, but just think about it this way. K6YZF11 in this case is a gateway, and it's a post office, and all the other stations can connect to it. So if KM6KQ has a message for AI6ME or the MAC, they can deposit that message on that gateway, and of course, then the MAC or AI6ME can come and pick that up whenever they have the time or whenever there's a clear frequency. So that's very, very effective. And those gateways can operate on VHF, UHF. You can have an Arden mesh connection on those gateways. You can have an HF connection because the origins of this are all in HF. And you can have an internet connection, so it can go out over the internet and propagate that way. Of course, If you have the internet available, that's a wonderful thing. You can send it through there. But if you don't have the internet available and you say have a VHF gateway, you can still have that information locally. All the local stations can pick it up. If you have an HF component to it, you can actually forward the information via HF. There's a network of HF gateways that actually connect throughout the United States and can pass this kind of information. Just keep in mind, you always want to fit your message sizes to which pathway you think you can send it on. So VARA FM, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Don't want to give too much away. And here's an example of peer-to-peer operation. Of course, KM6KQ can send directly to AI6ME, and he can send directly, if he has line of sight on VHF, to K6YZF. But what if, let's say, KM6KQ wanted to send something to K6OLI and they're separated by mountains? Well, he could send it to W2JCL, who then passes it on to KM6NAO, who has a direct line of sight, or more or less a connection to K6OLI. So that works really well for VHF, UHF. Of course, on HF, you can use technologies like NVIS, or ways of operating like near vertical incident skywave, and get around the mountains that way. Our Tyrolean friends in both the northern part of Italy and southern part of Austria have been very successful at connecting different valleys using NVIS. Funny enough, with an antenna design developed right here in Camarillo. So it's one of those wonderful things about learning how the international community comes together. So let's meet Mike, KM6KQ. In 2018, and this is a practical application right there, Mike was actually asked during the statewide medical health exercise to send a HICS 254, Hospital Incident Command System 254 patient tracking form. And for us, that was the first time we actually had experienced somebody sending that form. But obviously, HIPAA is an issue there. So Mike informed the emergency manager that all amateur radio traffic is unencrypted. And the emergency manager said, yes, I know that's the case, but part of our plan is understanding whether you can send this traffic. The names were made up. They used a name generator, which are available on the internet. So I think Donald Duck was one of the patients they tried to send there. And Mike proceeded, and he sent the 10 patient lists, some of them with really complicated names because it was a computer-generated naming system, in under a minute using WinLink packet. So that was that. When we took that traffic, we were really pleasantly surprised. And he did that with relatively simple equipment, a D710 Kenwood, and a signal link in this case. He also was able to use the TNC in there, but that time around he used a signal link. In 2019, during the statewide medical health exercise, the LA area hospitals using WinLink actually passed 100% of their traffic. So let that just sink in for a moment, in large part because our voice circuits, first ReadyNet became overloaded, the software that the Mac uses to communicate with the hospitals. And next, the voice channels became stressed because we were running a limited number of voice channels. And again, once we started introducing resource requests and these long terms started having to be spelled out, that slowed down traffic dramatically. Those hospitals, they were all located in the Northeast District, that were using WinLink actually just switched over and actually told us out here that they're switching over to WinLink, and they passed all their traffic digitally without any hiccups. One of the things that we do believe in is to have a voice net control even when we're running gateways. And on VHF, UHF, that's not a challenge at all. So we can actually tell people when it's their time to go. That increases efficiency dramatically. And WinLink remained operational. Both our gateways remained operational at the time. We had spare gateways with us, portable gateways. And of course, we could have always switched to peer-to-peer traffic. So that would have worked as well. So let's get technical for a moment. We train the way we fight. And that's true for Aries LAX Northeast. It's true for Aries LAX. It's true for everybody involved in emergency communications. The more we train, the more we learn. And I'm a big believer in not making things too easy. So I'm a big fan of giving people reach goals. Failure is not only an option, it's a must-have. Unless we push our systems to the brink of failure, we don't know what our parameter space is. We don't understand what we can and cannot do. During the actual event is not the time for us to start training. We have to be trained before. We have to push the boundaries before, so when it comes time to actually do this for real, and I'm telling you right now, I hope I never have to do any of this for a major earthquake. But when it comes time to actually do this and lives depend on it, we need to know what it is we're doing and not fumble around. So one of the things we do a lot, we train a lot. We have digital nets and exercises. Let's go through that. We have 5 simplex digital nets per month. Every first Sunday, we have a training session on Zoom. We've done that for about 2 years, followed by a peer-to-peer net so people can try out what they've learned. And that's kind of our basics course. And then every Thursday night at 9 p.m., 2100 hours Pacific time, we actually have a peer-to-peer net where we push the envelope, we do N-beams, we do WinLink, and anything else that we want to try out. Lately, now our next one will actually introduce APRS and WinLink at the same time, so we're looking forward to that. We're using WinLink peer-to-peer and portable gateway nets. Absolutely no reason not to use a gateway if you have it. N-beams, we have 4 WinLink digital exercises per month. And Jeff, who's on the net tonight, and if you have any questions about that, and I'm sure he'll also add you to that list if you want to learn more. Jeff, W2JCL, puts these exercises out. They're actual exercises. Some of them are designed to help you explore the capabilities of WinLink. Others are designed for actual traffic we expect people to send during emergencies. And they're a whole lot of fun. I always learn something. And they're designed so you can answer them any which way you want to. You can do it via internet if you're not comfortable with RF. You can use a local gateway, VHF, UHF. You can do it on HF. If you have one of those Iridium devices, try it via satellite and see how fast 1.2 kilobytes per minute actually is. And we have 4 fifth Saturday exercises per year, which is where we actually grab our gear and we set up in the park. One of the things that we have learned over time is it's very easy in our cozy places to actually operate. But what happens when you actually have to evacuate quickly and set up in a place you're not familiar? Do you have everything? One of our operators set up at the park and, everything was there and, just bit by bit by bit, and was ready to turn on the radio. And the colleague sitting right next, the operator right next said, oh, before you start transmitting, how is your radio connected to your antenna? Is that via RF? And it turned out the coax was still under the bed at home. That was a very important lesson learned there and a mistake nobody's going to repeat. But these things happen. Working on Go kits, working on deployments is a constant effort. And this is what these are. They're always great fun. We try mesh in the park. We try VHF. We've had an HF exercise in the Angeles National Forest, which was absolutely beautiful. Plus, you get another 4,000 feet of elevation. That makes for good signals. And we support 3 to 4 events every year. The statewide medical health exercise, of course, is the big one where we activate the hospitals. And of course, we do things like the Angeles Crest 100 relay race, Baker to Vegas Relay Cup, which is a law enforcement relay race, which is a lot of fun. We actually work in the desert for that between Baker in California and Las Vegas in Nevada. And of course, local events like the Ronald McDonald Walk for Kids. So all in all, we have 115 digital exercises per year. So how do we run effective and efficient digital exercise nets? We like voice net control that directs digital traffic on the same frequency. That has been a game changer. the fact that we take voice check-ins and then stations check in digitally changes everything, because now if a station has traffic, they call net control. Net control says, send your traffic. Do you want to use VARA or packet? And they choose what they want to use. And we switch pretty quickly between those two. Works great on VHF, UHF, but regulations currently prohibit this on HF. And I think that's too bad, because if we could do this on HF, that would be the killer app. Because then there would be no stopping. Distance is not an issue for that anymore. We value operational flexibility. The core of all of this is the operator. The operator is in charge. She decides what the best path is for the situation and makes those decisions in coordination with the team. The bread and butter, all disasters start on a local level. Whether you like it or not, they all start locally. We first look after our own families, after our neighborhoods, and then the local resources deploy in the first 24 hours. That's the reality of it. And it'll take a while until the neighboring communities are able to help, till the state comes in and helps, until on a national level, the help comes. So most of it in the initial phase will be on VHF, UHF, maybe on mesh, and depending on where you are, some states in the Midwest, I lived in Minnesota for 2 years, HF to cover those longer distances. North Dakota, I can imagine that HF is very valuable to cover these extremely long distances. They're very large states. But keep in mind, there's a trade-off always for all of this. Mesh is wonderful because you have high bandwidth, but the distances are realistically between 10 and 20 miles. You can use WinLink on mesh, not a problem, and voice over IP, although we have found that it's actually easier to use 2-meter handheld or 70-centimeter handhelds or mobile radios and just use the PTT. I mean, that's a wonderful way of combining those two. Use the data, the mesh side for the data, and the voice on VHF, UHF. VHF, UHF, you can do medium bandwidth, medium distance. WinLink is available, NBeams is available. They're both great software packages. You can do voice on FM, SSB, not a problem. And then, of course, you've got HF. And there you have lower bandwidth, but longer distance, and you don't need that line of sight. So there's a big advantage in having that. WinLink, NBeams are available on HF without any problems. Voice, you've got SSB, you can use AM. And of course, finally, you can use the internet, especially if you are WinLink enabled. So WinLink is multi-mode and cross-band. We really like that. Quick overview, I'm not going to go through everything here. Just the thing I want to point out is line of sight. VHF, UHF, you can kind of get away with it not being strict line of sight. Mesh, it has to be strict line of sight. And HF, you don't need line of sight at all. So that's a big plus right there. Keep in mind that cost is always an issue. So a good VHF, UHF station will run you about $500 to $700 by the time you have the antenna and the other systems involved, the battery and so on. But the other big advantage is, and mesh equipment is really low cost. You can pick up decent mesh equipment for $60, $70. So it's very easy for people to get involved in this. HF, costs are higher, but you get a lot of utility out of it as well. One of the big things I would like to impress on you is licenses. It's very easy to get people started on emergency communications with technician licenses, both in mesh and VHF, UHF. And what we have found in our group is we've had people come in with Baofangs, and I started a lot of my digital with a Baofang and, tried it out because I thought it was much easier to blow up a $30 radio than my preferred radios. But the thing is, we find that people come in, they have questions, and some of our best operators started that way. And what they realized very, very quickly is there is a lot more to this than they expected. And they go from exploring the VHF, UHF mesh realm very quickly to HF. I would say in our group, within about a year, year and a half, everybody is at least a general. So it's been a great entry into the hobby and into emergency communications. And again, the takeaway from this list is that there's an inverse relationship between throughput and distance that really makes a whole lot of sense. Voice, the way I speak right now, is about 125 words per minute. If I have to speak slowly to actually pass traffic, that number would drop. And if I have to spell it out, then it will drop even more. Factor 3, the distance, you know, I mean, that we know works. It works to longer distance than that, but just a number here, 2200, that's coast to coast. And you get about 2,340 words per minute out of that. VARA HF, 7,263 words per minute. VARA FM narrow, 14,000 words per minute. So now you're talking quite a lot of data. VARA FM wide, 30,000 words per minute. And then, of course, mesh. You can have those 5 megabits at 6 million and at 50 minutes at 60 million words per minute. But you see at the same time on HF, you have that huge distance advantage. So you can actually send traffic, and that happened during the Mexico City earthquake, where stations from Mexico City used N5TW station in Texas to actually pass traffic back and forth. So you do have that option to go outside of your area. Here's a great example of one of our recent peer-to-peer nets that Tom, KN6BKT, who was on the net tonight, led. And this was probably the height of efficiency of what we had. We had 8 stations on this net, and we handled 40 messages in 18 minutes. And those were check-in. So every station sent a check-in, an HSA, hospital status assessment, a burn resource, a burn DRC form, and a checkout, and they all received the exercise. 40 messages in 18 minutes, that is a lot, 5 messages per station. We would never be able to do this on voice. And I most definitely wouldn't be able to do it on CW, you know, but just keep that in mind. This net went almost too well because nothing went wrong on this. And as I said before, I like it when things go wrong. It gives us something to work towards. But this was just perfectly handled across the board. So what's the key to all of this? And the answer is operators. We can talk about this technology, that technology, and this is better, that is better. It doesn't make a difference. The difference are the operators. The operators need to have skills, and they need to constantly practice. Because one, it helps them develop new skills. It helps them maintain and hone the existing skills they have. WinLink, NBeams, all of these things, they have a shelf life. If I go on vacation for 2 weeks and I come back and I haven't done any of this, it does take me a couple of days to get back into the rhythm. Have I turned my signal link on? Is the radio set to the right frequency? Am I on the right screen? And so on. So just keep that in mind. The more you practice, the better you'll be at this, just like all the other systems. Just because we do amateur radio doesn't make us great emergency communicators. Our served agencies are looking for something very specific. And the truth of the matter is, these days, they're looking for people who can handle incident command forms, hospital incident command system forms, and local forms that they have developed on their own. The other thing is, one of the things that we do is to experiment and advance technology. Our little group has contributed, just like Hawaii areas, San Diego areas, Washington areas groups have, to the development of WinLink and made it hopefully more robust. Our reports come back and say, you know, this is working for us. Would you mind changing this? And again, the WinLink development team has been nothing but extraordinary in terms of helping us develop our capabilities, helping us address issues that we had. And that's just been a very fruitful cooperation. Secondly, equipment. Successful operators keep their equipment in top shape. You cannot expect your equipment to sit in a box for a year, and then when you need it, you bring it out and it all works. Your battery will probably be dead. You may have moved to a different radio, may not know how the old one works as well as you used to. So these things matter. You also want to try different configurations. Is the antenna that used to work still working? And plus, when you practice your Go kits regularly, you kind of understand that things may stop working. Maybe you need to update something. Again, the worst thing that can happen is that you come to a hospital, lives depend on you sending that traffic, and you can't because your coax cable is bad, your radio hasn't been updated with the most recent frequencies, etc., etc. These are not situations we want to be found in. And finally, teamwork. Successful operators always work in teams. So you want to develop and hone your operating procedures. You're never alone out there. You also want to troubleshoot as a team. One of the things that we do really well, I like to boast in this case, is that if anybody runs into an issue on a net, we try to solve it with them. And that's a very encouraging and supportive atmosphere. Now that we don't have to do this for life or death, it has to work, and we have the luxury of actually sending that in, trying this out. During the statewide medical health exercise is not the time to fix people's problems. At that point, we take the traffic from those stations that can send us the traffic because we can help them now. During an actual event, we will only focus on the people we can help, not the ones we can't. That's the reality of the situation. The other thing is you learn to trust one another. Amateur radio's power during Katrina, for instance, was that there were these teams of people who had a web of trust. You knew who you were talking to on the other side. And so we've looked very carefully at the experiences during Katrina. We've looked very carefully at Puerto Rico and the lessons to be learned from that. And we've incorporated a lot of this down into our operating practices. So for some of you who've lived through this, I want to thank you for actually reporting, sharing, and really doing this as a service to the community. We're all paying attention, and all the experiences that you've had are percolating throughout the community. Finally, it's relatively easy to do VHF on WinLink and cost effective. Most of you have this already at home: computer, radio antenna, coax battery, a sound card interface, or TNC if you want to do packet, but we generally recommend sound card interfaces. We use signaling simply because they existed in our community long before that, but there are others like RIM devices if you have an Alinco type system, or you can use the RA boards, and Joe can probably fill you in on that a little bit more. WinLink is free to use. If you want to get rid of the nag screen, I think the last time I checked was $28. The UC7HO sound modem is absolutely phenomenal. It's a free software package that combines with your sound card interface to create a packet station. And Vara FM, it's also free to use, twice as fast as packet in the free version. $50 if you buy a group buy of 10 or more people, or $69 if you want to have the fast speeds unlocked. And that covers both your HF and your VHF, UHF, and that's consistently developed. So where do we go from here? We want to increase the WinLink footprint. We had 6 hospitals that used WinLink in 2019. That was 50% of the participating hospitals in the Aries LAX Northeast District. We had a little over 35 hospitals participating. Overall, about half the hospitals participated, but really only 6 of them used it. And again, they got all their traffic through, and they were all converts after that. We have 21 Northeast operators that have at least a functional knowledge, 11 of which are expert users. Like many other groups, we do have attrition. In our case, it's a lot of people who've lived in California for a long time, have very nice homes, and they're selling those homes and move to places where they've got more space and can put up those antenna towers that they've always wanted. So that's one of the challenges we have. And the other thing is our training workshops and exercises are a great success. We're reaching out all over the place. We've been working very closely with our friends in the High Desert District who've become WinLink capable within 3-4 months and are expanding their footprint. Served agencies love WinLink. We found that out after the statewide medical health exercise last year. The hospitals like the functionality and the workflow, And they like that they're dealing with known knowns. So they can go sit in front of an LA County form on WinLink now, and they can fill it out. And if they have a spreadsheet, they can fill it out, their spreadsheet, hand it over and send it. It de-stresses them during times of stress tremendously. And so they're big fans of this. They also like the Higgs forms. That's just something they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So again, it's that familiarity that's been a big selling point. Give you an example, Pomona Valley Hospital DRC, and that they are a fantastic group. They've always had a big investment in amateur radio. They have a fantastic HF station out there. They have several VHF stations, and on the right here, the Mobile Hospital Command Center is actually their Mobile Hospital Command Center, where they have a whole kit that can run an incident command system out of this box. They have, I think, 4 radios in there, 1 dedicated to WinLink. They're thinking about putting a portable gateway in there. They've been absolutely phenomenal to work with. And they actually want all of their hospitals and clinics attached to them as a disaster resource center to be WinLink capable by the end of 2020. And we're happy to help them achieve that. There are challenges ahead for Aries LAX. One is we need to find a workable solution for high desert district. They're separated from the other districts by an enormous mountain range. And people keep forgetting there are mountains here. You cannot see them on a lot of the movies simply because there's usually a layer of dust in the air, but they are extremely high. 5,000 to 6,000 feet are not unheard of in our neighborhood. So we need to find a way that they can talk with us simplex, and we're exploring these options and working on these this summer. HF is definitely on one of the things we're looking at, and maybe add some digipeaters for WinLink and so on. So we're exploring different ideas together. It has to be a solution we can all live with, and that's affordable and robust. We'll bring us back to that point. For Northeast, we have to step up our quick deployment HF game. We do HF, and we reach out to gateways all over and test them, but we need to get better at deploying that quickly. Our goal for a VHF station is operational in under 10 minutes, and for HF, it would have to add another 10 minutes, but not longer than that, because the faster we're online, the faster our hospitals receive the resources they need and the support they need from the county. Understand everything we do in order to support our served agencies and by extension, our community. It's not theoretical for us, very simply put, because those hospitals will be hosting or will be taking care of our family members, our wives, our children, our parents, our cousins, brothers, sisters, our neighbors, our friends. And I always tell our people, you want to have the best trained operator at that hospital. You don't want somebody who just walked off the street and said, hey, I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and that's why I can do this. You want somebody who says, I'm taking this seriously, and I'm doing this in service to my community. And then the other thing, we want to gain greater acceptance for WinLink among the other districts. Again, High Desert has been working very closely. Northwest is becoming involved in WinLink, and I know South is looking into it. And again, we're a resource for everybody, and we're happy to reach out. We've been working very closely with our friends in San Diego, and a big shout out to them, to all the great work they've been doing. San Diego has been essentially WinLinking all their major 911 receiving hospitals very successfully. I know our friends in Washington State have been using WinLink very successfully to support EOCs. Oregon, same thing, EOCs, hospital supports. And our friends in Northern California, Sacramento Valley areas, and so on, they've been working absolutely tirelessly to make this work. And last but not least, Hawaii has been one of those shining beacons in WinLink development and thinking about things creatively. Like us, they are dealing with mountains, and instead of valleys, they have ocean in between, but so it's a very similar environment to operate in. And this has been one of the most wonderful things about this process and this journey to work together with people who are solving common problems and looking at it from different perspectives. And that's what enriches our community. And finally, there are tons of resources on WinLink, and please feel free to reach out. My email is k6oli@arrl.net. That's Kilo 6 Oscar Lima India at Alpha Romeo Romeo Lima.net, November Echo Tango. So please reach out. We're happy to work with you. We have a weekly WinLink exercise. If you're on WinLink, send Jeff W2JCL in the to field. All you have to do is type W2JCL an email, and I'm sure he'll be happy to add you to the exercise. You can complete that at your leisure. If you don't complete it, again, there's no, we don't grade people. We do provide feedback. So if there's things that we say, you know, look at this, look at that, you can certainly always opt out of the feedback, but you know, we do that. And they come out usually every Sunday. So a whole lot of fun. We have WinLink how-to quick guides, Vara FM and Packet. You'll be up and running if you have a signal link at home and a 2-meter 440 or dual band rig. You can be up and running under 10 minutes. So it works really well. We've had great feedback on those. They're available in the WinLink Book of Knowledge. And finally, I would like to impress upon you, and I'm happy for Dave to add some to this, the San Diego Aries WinLink video series, WinLink short clips there, and we can provide you with those links in a list as well afterwards. They're great short clips that walk you through it step by step by step. Understand that we get that sometimes it's difficult for people to admit when they don't know. The beauty of it for me is I know I don't know, and I always know that I don't know. So asking is for me a very natural way of doing things. Understand that it's absolutely encouraged to ask questions. This is what the hobby is about: mentoring, helping each other, being friends, and developing these relationships. And if I don't know the question, maybe Jeff does. And if we don't know, we can point you towards somebody who knows that question. The strength of the amateur radio community is that it is a community and you can reach out. So part of our development is always ask. If you don't know, ask. If you're in doubt, ask. If you think you know and you're not sure, ask. And if you have something that you say, let's try this out, say that. Again, Mike, who's an excellent operator, he said, you know, why don't we do everything digitally? I said, okay, go ahead, leave that net exactly the way you envision it. We did that for 10 minutes and he called it. He said, no, this is just not working. Let's do the voice part because the tactical communications on voice works. And then we do the traffic digitally. And he had that idea, he stepped up to the plate and he ran it, and it was just like a scientific experiment. It's like, okay, it was much more efficient the way we did it with voice, and that's a great test. And we will go back to trying that. Maybe we've gained more experience, we could try it, and maybe we'll learn the lesson that, you know, we go back. And with that, here are a couple of more links and resources. WinLink for MCOM is a great Google group. I strongly encourage you to go in there and ask people questions. There's a WinLink program group if you want to learn more about WinLink, how to set it up with your specific rig, especially on HF. Great resource forum. And of course, the Book of Knowledge has a ton of information, including the San Diego Aries information.